This Sports Plus conversation is sponsored by your Quality Ford dealers. Ford F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 47 years.
One of the great things about working for Five on Your Side has been getting to know Bob Costas. He's likely been in our studio 50 times for interviews, and each one of them has been compelling. Last night, Bob received the Lifetime Achievement Honor at the Musial Awards. I was out this week, so Mike Bush graciously agreed to interview Bob for Sports Plus. Bob Costas is tonight's Sunday Conversation.
All right, you've won countless awards in your career. Now you're getting an award with the name Musial on it, and I wonder what that means to you.
The two awards, no disrespect at all to anything else, the two awards that mean the most to me are the Ford Frick Award, which is the broadcaster's wing of the Baseball Hall of Fame, and the Musial Award, because the Musial Award is also connected to baseball because of Stan, but it also represents St. Louis.
You two became friends, and I just wonder what that relationship between Bob Costas and Stan Musial meant to you.
You know, it's a cliche when someone says Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame person, but it was dead on accurate about Stan Musial. And he treated everybody with kindness and respect, and that included me. You know, I think he was naturally closer to Jack Buck because they were closer to contemporaries. It isn't a competition, but Stan was so gracious to me, always. And as it happens, one of his grandchildren, Lindsay, went to school from kindergarten all the way through high school with my daughter, Taylor. You know, St. Louis is a big, small town. And I would see Stan at high school graduations for his granddaughter, my daughter. I'd see him at soccer games, and he'd sit there just like anybody else, but he knew that people would come up to him, and he'd have autographed cards at the ready, and he'd be accommodating to everyone. He was a genuinely happy person. It's one thing to be a good person, decent person, kind person, but he was happy. He was quite content being Stan Musial. His granddaughter told my daughter, you know, you can come to my house on Saturday night to sleep over, and I can come to your house any other night but Saturday, but I have to be home on Saturday because on Sunday morning, my grandpa brings us Egg McMuffins or Dunkin' Donuts. And so Stan the man would just like show up at 9 o'clock in the morning with the Egg McMuffins and the donuts.
Yeah.
You're just a regular guy.
You also told the story about Stan Musial at the All-Star Game. Repeat that story for us.
All-Star Game in the late 1950s, and the black players, the great black players in the National League, Ernie Banks, Frank Robinson, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, they're in a corner of the National League clubhouse playing cards. No white players anywhere around them. And Stan Musial walked up, pulled up a folding chair and said, "Deal me in." Hank Aaron and Willie Mays each told me that story, and I'm sure they told it to others, independently, years later. That's the effect it had on them. Was that a political statement? No, just a statement of common decency, sorely missing from a lot of our public discourse these days. And think of what it meant, not just to those black players, think what it meant to the other white players in that clubhouse, some of them from the still Jim Crow South, to see the most accomplished and the most respected among them make that simple gesture.
Baseball is, I mean, you've done the Olympics, you've done so many things in your career, but baseball has always been in your heart. And you recently made a decision that broke my heart, to be perfectly honest, that you're not going to do play-by-play anymore for Major League Baseball. Tell me what went into that decision.
I just felt over the last couple of years that while it was still good, for the most part, it wasn't as good as my career standard. And that was the sole reason. Not anything else coming from any other direction. I made the decision more than a year ago. Thought I would do one more season, sort of end on a grace note if I could. I'll continue to do everything else, maybe not as much inventory as I once did, but all the other things, interviews, commentaries, essays, historical pieces, I'll continue to do that. But play-by-play is a different thing, especially when you try to do it as I tried to do it, which was to bring more elements to it than just there's a ground ball to shortstop. to weave in some things that gave the broadcast texture. And I think I was able to do that pretty well for a long period of time. And I just couldn't do it by my own standards quite as deftly as I'd like to think I once did.
When I say St. Louis, what does that mean to you?
St. Louis is my true hometown. I grew up on Long Island. I was affected by the television and the radio that I watched and listened to, the newspapers that my dad read, all my relatives and friends there. I went to Syracuse University. Those are all important parts of my life. But St. Louis is where my career and life took shape. So I've always thought of it. When people say, "You're from St. Louis, aren't you?" Sometimes I'll correct them just the basic facts, but I'm content with if they think that's my hometown, because I do as well.
I've spent quite a bit of time at Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital talking to parents and sometimes kids on their worst day. And they have hope on that day that I'm talking to them because they're at the Costas Cancer Center. And the kindness and the generosity that you showed to make that happen. And I know you give credit to the frontline folks.
Yeah.
But that became a passion of yours, didn't it?
Yes. And what I was able to do, they created an apparatus for me. And it was an evening of entertainment that you would want to go to even if there were no cause connected to it. But what I always tried to mention from the stage is, as we're doing this, there are volunteers and nurses and hospital people, doctors, right now at Cardinal Glennon, sitting alongside the bedside of a youngster who's very ill, and his parents are praying for a positive outcome. And one of the things that I always took umbrage to, and it's understandable, you'll see it in obituaries and appreciations, so-and-so lost their battle with cancer or whatever disease. Well, some of those kids got to graduate high school.
Right.
Some of those kids went to their prom. Some of those kids had more time with their families and their friends. That's not losing. Some of them are now 50 years old and members of the community.
Correct.
And they're great. But there are other stories that are significant stories within that.
At the heart of the Musials, it's about sportsmanship, which at its core is kindness and decency.
Yes.
And I want to thank you for all the kindness and decency that you have showed me and all of my colleagues at Channel 5 over the years. I can't express to you how much it's meant to us.
Well, I appreciate that.
And congratulations on this honor. It is a big honor.
It is a big honor, and it means a lot to me. You know, I think sometimes when you hear the word sportsmanship, because it starts with sports, people naturally think of the end of a series in the Stanley Cup playoffs and players lined up and shaking hands, or someone who's gracious in both victory and defeat. And that is sportsmanship. But this is bigger than that. Civility, decency, empathy, kindness. Stan exemplified those qualities. Others aspire to it. We aspire to it. It is missing in a troubling way in too much of our public life, not just sports. And so it makes decency, kindness, civility, mutual respect, you appreciate it all the more because now it stands in such stark contrast with much of what we're confronted with on a daily basis.
Well, congratulations on the award. You're very deserving.
Thank you, Mike.